Golden State. Golden State is just, they obviously have the championship pedigree. I think Houston has played better throughout the year. But it's just something when those four All-Stars get together, when they're motivated, when the playoffs set, and they know what the task is at hand. I think that I saw in the New Orleans series, they could take it to a whole nother notch. And I expect, even though I'm rooting for Houston and actually going to game one, I expect when the series is over, the Warriors to show that they even have another level and that Houston will, basically push them to the brink.
Okay, but what you're saying, when you say championship pedigree, why does that matter in a series like this? Does that matter because Chris Paul is making his debut in the conference finals, that James Harden's never won a title? Why does that matter in a series like this?
I think that you saw somewhat, not from a championship pedigree, you just saw in the Philly and Boston series. I mean, Philly, you could tell it was their first playoff series. And I think that it's a different, when we played the Lakers, when I was in Phoenix with Nash in those days, even though we had Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, you could see the championship pedigree Kobe and the Lakers have when it comes to these finals. It's the role players. It's someone like Sean Livingston and Iguodala compared to now Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson, PJ Tucker types, where these guys have been in there. They know their exact roles, the shots they've shot before. When Andre Iguodala was Finals MVP, it's the role guys that have been here before. Now, David West, where this is what they've been, this is what they've been going all season for. They've been here many times, and I think that's going to show. I think that James Harden will be brilliant. Kevin Durant will be brilliant, and the question is, can Harden have 4 brilliant games? That's why it's so hard to beat LeBron, because LeBron will give you that in the series to be able to win out of 7 games. So that's really going to be the key. Is he going to be unstoppable for 4 of those, hopefully 6 or 7 games for them?
Okay, devil's advocate, because I don't disagree with you. I think it's until somebody beats Golden State in the Western Conference 4 out of 7, I'm going to have to wait and see to predict against them getting beaten 4 out of 7. But you said that Golden State took their games to another level against the Pelicans. And I agree with that too. But I also saw the Rockets elevate themselves. After losing game 2, they adjusted and they beat down the Jazz. Was that not equally as impressive to you?
Not equally, just because Jazz weren't at full strength. I thought Ricky Rubio would have played a different role in that series. I still think that Houston would have won. The way New Orleans harassed Portland and their small ball and Anthony Davis and Al Mirotic, we just see there's only a couple teams, which Houston is one of them. The versatility they have, the switch starting lineups. You see Brad Stevens does it based on the starting lineup. Steve Kerr does it. A lot of coaches are afraid of that. Kerr is not, Iguodala coming in as a 55 and then putting him on Mirotic, and just the versatility where, can Houston, D'Antoni is known to do that. PJ Tucker plays some backup 5. You're basically saying, hey, we're playing your style of ball and we're trying to beat your style. And I just think that with the firepower they have of Steph, Clay, and KD through a 7-game series, I think their versatility on offense, not just to be one-dimensional, will end up playing out throughout this series.
Talking to Jared Dudley, Phoenix Suns forward, joining me here on the Dan Patrick Show. Do you think the Rockets can play enough defense to win this series?
For sure. That's the one thing that I don't think that people get enough credit. They can. I just think that one team's going to outscore someone when it comes down to it. I think they're both going to be good. I think even game 1, I could see even, I could see Golden State struggling in game 1. The one thing that Houston does better than any other team is switch every ball screen. Not only do they switch ball screens, they'll switch pin downs. So someone like Klay Thompson, when you see him getting all these pin downs and jump shots, the Rockets are going to take that away. Clay is not going to have one of these 19-point quarters because they switch it, and all the defenders, besides James Harden, their starting 5, are above average defenders. I mean B+ to A-, PJ Tucker, Capella, Chris Paul, and obviously Trevor Ariza. Mute comes in the other line. So defensively is not going to be their problem. The problem is when they switch all these screens, Kevin Durant is going to have the mismatch most likely every single time, which he usually does anyway. But having Chris Paul Harden on him when they do these screens is going to open him up a lot.
All right, let me ask you about the Eastern Conference. 2 teams that on some level are in the conference finals somewhat improbably. I mean, I guess LeBron being there isn't that improbable. He's done it 8 consecutive seasons. But, they've had their issues this year. Boston's injury issues. Which team are you more surprised is in the conference finals right now?
Boston. Boston by a little bit. I think that we don't give enough credit to all these players. A lot of it we give credit to Brad Stevens, and rightfully so. But Tatum's a stud. Jaylen Brown was a stud last year towards the end, and we knew that he's going to have a big season. His potential, their versatility. We didn't know about Rozier. We didn't know Rozier was this good. And Brad Stevens gets a lot of that credit. He's good defensively. He takes big shots. He makes big shots. Al Horford's their key. The reason why their offense is so unique to be able to move it is because they have a 5 whose IQ is one of the best in the NBA. He can shoot the 3. He makes all the right decisions. He can play small ball. He can punish you in the post. So I would put them. And when it comes to Cleveland, well, the thing is, can you beat LeBron 4 out of 7? He finds a way. The game slows down. The ball's in his hand more now than it's ever been his whole career. And that's why I think that Boston will give him trouble, because Boston's going to throw a lot of bodies at him and wear him down. And I just think that he'll have one game where he's going to win in Boston. And can Boston, from a mental edge, being as a young team, deal with that? Because they never lose at home. LeBron's going to find a way to win one game in Boston. It always happens. Every time he plays, he's going to have one of those games. Kevin Love's going to hit a couple of these threes. And can they be able to get enough wins on the road and be able to win in Cleveland to win this series? And I don't think they can.
Why was Indiana more effective against Cleveland than Toronto was?
Indiana, though, throughout the whole season, has been the scrappiest, greediest, dirtiest, dirty in a good way, team. Physical, and you hate, they're the one team in India you hate to play. Because if you didn't play hard enough, they're going to win by 20. And so one of the problems with the Cavaliers is they don't play hard all the time. They're bad in transition defense. Besides, before they were playing Tristan Thompson, they don't have any physical players. Love is pretty physical down low to a certain degree. So their athleticism, Thaddeus Young to be his versatile being defending to guard LeBron and Kevin Love, it's a different matchup. Where Toronto, I think we all agree the mental edge Cleveland had, but I don't think they had that player like Victor Oladipo where, hey, no one can guard me. You can't trap me. I'm not looking for fouls. I'm just more faster, athletic, and Jason Tatum can be that player. Is he ready at this age to be able to do it? And that's what we're waiting for here. Come Sunday.
You played with both Morris brothers in Phoenix. Ever have any problems telling them apart?
Never. Markeith has a little chubbier cheeks. You can tell from the Wizards and stuff like that. He's a little bit more. Marcus is a little bit more leaner. And how about that story? These are two guys that you think that overall, they get early on got a bad rep. I remember talking to Ainge before the game. They love him and what he's done for that team, being a starter in Detroit. And a lot of people don't buy in. Now, he was a starter, getting ready to be on a contract year coming up next year, and to come in off the bench and be able to get the same reps, you got to credit. You never hear anything bad about Boston, those players sacrificing, and you'll see maybe next year when these two stars come back, and that's a credit to their coaching staff.
Well, you remember there was a long time people thought that they couldn't play apart. Like, they were very against it.
Right. And if you listen to them, they weren't. The thing about them, they work hard in the summertime. They want to get better each and every year. And in this day and age, especially in basketball, you need those tough guys. You need those guys that don't mind getting in someone's face. And I think that's helped Boston throughout the year. He got it with Ben Simmons. They're not really a pushover, and I think it's helped their grit and their toughness of their team.
Always great to talk to you, Jared. Enjoy the conference finals, my friend. Appreciate the time.
Anytime, man. Thank you.
You got it. It's Jared Dudley, the Phoenix Suns forward, joining me here on the Dan Patrick Show.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app. We know that humans love Isle of Dogs.
Respecto.
But we took some dogs to the theater to find out what they think.
I was a big fan. Wow.
would Boston be better right now with those guys? But again, I go back to the fact that you're not subbing out a Kyrie for a Terry Rozier. You're not subbing out Gordon Hayward for a Jaylen Brown. You move one of those guys to the bench. And one of the problems Boston's had is scoring droughts. They've had 3, 4, 5 minute stretches where they can't score. All of a sudden, if Jaylen Brown is your sixth man, you can score more with that second unit. In Terry Rozier, you can score more. Now, they're going to have a lot of problems next year. I don't know. It's going to be, you're going to have to see some Brad Stevens wizardry for that to happen next, for things to work.
Speaking of Brad Stevens, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you feel badly that you cost him votes for Coach of the Year?
Votes? What was?
Well, I think I happen to believe, I don't know if you talked about this yesterday, I have real reason to believe the reason Brad Stevens was shut out by his colleagues for Coach of the Year is maybe justifiable bitterness from coaches towards guys such as yourself and myself, the talking heads who act as if Brad Stevens is a deity. And I think there was some bitterness towards the idea that Boston had no talent. Mm-hmm. I had heard from people in the league, like, listen, Brad's a great coach, but the way you guys talk about him compared to the rest of us is unfair to everyone else. That's the only... Dwayne Casey winning Coach of the Year is fine. Like, you can make a case for it. But Brad Stevens getting no votes, to me, that was verification that there is a feeling in the league amongst the coaches, because that's obviously not the media award. That's the coaches, the one the coaches vote on, that the coaches said, can we just pump the brakes a little bit on worshiping at the altar of Brad Stevens? Now, I still worship at the altar of Brad Stevens. I'm not going to go as far as your Twitter poll. Would you rather have him or any player in the league?
Fair question.
But there's only,
it can't be LeBron, though, because it's not going to be, because it's an expansion team. That's what I said in the front. It's an expansion team.
You don't want your expansion team to go to the NBA Finals in year one? I mean, there's to me a dozen players I'd take ahead of Stevens.
Would you really, if you're the GM of the Las Vegas Sharks or whatever, and you're saying you're building your team out for the next 10 years, you don't take Giannis or Embiid over LeBron?
Well, hold on. Maybe I would, but I wouldn't take Brad Stevens over.
Okay, no, that's fair. And more people voted that.
Yeah, there's a dozen players I would take.
Honestly, I would take the player too. I didn't vote on that. People are going after me saying, "Oh, this is a ridiculous poll." I didn't vote. I just put the question.
You put the question out there, and it's interesting. If you're asking me, which player right now, I could have any player in the league, and I'm getting them, I don't have to worry about them leaving, right? I'm getting them from now until their career's over. Mm-hmm. My hierarchy would go Giannis 1, Anthony Davis 2, Ben Simmons 3, Embiid 4. And then at that point, I think I'd take LeBron because I think he's got another 3 years as the best player in the league, mm-hmm. and another couple after that while he waits on his son to get to the league, mm-hmm. where he's going to still be a top 10 guy. I think that's a fair point. I'm also a huge Giannis fan. I think Giannis is everything people are saying Ben Simmons going to be, different type of player, but taking over the league. I think Giannis is about to do that.
Well, Ben Simmons is going to have to do what Giannis did and deconstruct his jump shot and reconstruct it in a different way. Giannis right now has a clean-looking jump shot. Ben Simmons is all kinds of messed up.
Do you think it's possible Ben Simmons is shooting with the wrong hand?
It's interesting.
Do you think it's possible that Ben Simmons should be shooting right-handed?
I don't know if he can switch it.
But he is. It's something, I'm going to misquote it and I apologize. He's right-handed in everything but basketball.
Yeah.
So it's just when the shot's that bad. Dude took 59 shots in round 2. 2 were outside of the paint. Only 10 were outside of 6 feet. And he was 2 of 10 on those outside of 6 feet. And the problem with Ben Simmons is it's not that he can't make a jump shot. Mm-hmm. It's that he won't shoot a jump shot. You got to, even if you're going to shoot 30%, you got to be a threat to actually shoot the ball. They know he won't do it. I also talked to someone that knows Ben really well that thinks what happened in this round will be good for him.
I agree.
They had this sense of arrival before actually arriving, and this will humble them a bit.
80% of the mistakes Ben Simmons made in that second round, he's not going to make them again. Those are mistakes you make as young players. I thought the Sixers would take their lumps in that first round against Miami. They were better than that. They pushed through the rookie stuff or the early young player stuff and won that series. This is where they took their lumps. But Oklahoma City did it. All the young teams did it. To put a button on what you said about Brad Stevens, why he didn't get the votes there. A couple of reasons. It definitely could be some of the stuff that you talked about, that we in the media put him up on a pedestal, justifiably in a lot of ways because of what he's done with this team. His out-of-timeout plays are brilliant, as we saw in that Philadelphia series. One, Dwayne Casey, if he got all 30 votes, I don't think this would come up. I don't think we'd be having this conversation because it's a one-line vote. You can only vote for one coach. And Dwayne Casey has been a part of the coaching fraternity for a long time. He's been an assistant coach, a head coach. everybody likes Dwayne Casey. He has been there, and he deserves it. For the regular season, he was great. Postseason, different story. The problem I have is why is Doc Rivers getting a vote? Why are Quinn Snyder? Why did he get a vote?
7 guys got votes.
Why
and
did
Brad
they get
Stevens
votes?
not being?
That's my issue.
And I thought, listen, if it was a 5-line ballot, Quinn Snyder would be on my ballot.
Quinn Snyder was third on my Coach of the Year ballot.
Right. So I don't have. I understand all that. It was odd though that Brad Stevens was shut out entirely. Yeah, it was really odd.
The 6 votes that went to somebody other than Dwayne Casey. Where's my issue? If you don't think it's Casey, how do you not think it's Brad Stevens? Given everything that's gone on in Boston. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to get to the Western Conference as well. Steph Curry versus James Harden. Rockets home court advantage of the star power Golden State. Get into that with Nick Wright, co-host of First Things First, coming up next. Nick's trying to go to the Celtic Cavs, game 1 Sunday. And he told me during the break that if he goes, Nick is a advocate for LeBron. How would you describe
I'm a
true believer?
I'm a truth teller. Well, I would like to think I'm one of the only honest people in the media about this.
There we go.
This has been pretty obvious for the last couple of years that ever since LeBron completed the greatest 3-game stretch in the history of the sport against the greatest team in the history of the sport to deliver his birthright to the city of Cleveland, he's been the greatest basketball player we've ever seen. Now, people can argue otherwise, but they don't really mean it. They just do it because they think they have to, or they have a nostalgia bias, or they're, some diehard Boston fan. I'm not certain. But people know what they're seeing in their heart of hearts. Go ahead.
You could have stopped a truth teller.
Okay,
that would have been enough there. But you're going into Boston, and you're on TV, and you've been a truth teller, as you said, and on social media. You're very popular there.
I'm well known there.
You're well known.
Popularity is a different story.
So you're going to walk into Boston, and people are going to walk up to you in the concourse of the TD Garden and buy your seats. They're going to see you sitting there, maybe in your Cleveland Cavalier jersey. I don't know.
I don't have a Cleveland Cavalier jersey, but my daughter does.
They're going to see you there, and you're going to say what when Nick Wright sucks gets hurled down from.
Listen, I went to Philly. I have no beef with Philly, but I had the audacity when Carson Wentz went down to say, if you lose an MVP, you can't win a Super Bowl. And at the beginning of the playoffs, I said there are 5 teams in the NFC that can win the Super Bowl. Philly's not one of them. And then I went to the NFC Championship game with Chris Carter, sitting in a box, the Vikings box essentially there, and the crowd in front of me started a Nick Wright sucks chant at the link in Philadelphia. I would imagine I'm much more disliked in Boston than I was in Philadelphia.
I've made sure of that.
Of course. I would also imagine people will be that drunk or drunker because at least those Eagles fans weren't preemptively drinking away their sorrows.
Mother's Day,
Boston
Sunday.
fans will be. Yeah, but they know they're in for 2 hours of pain.
Yeah.
They know that the last time LeBron lost to the Boston Celtics in that arena in a playoff game, it was 2012. I do believe LeBron has more career playoff victories in TD Garden than any current member of the Boston Celtics. So listen, people can heckle me, and I'm sure early in the game they'll feel good about it, and around the third quarter they'll sheepishly leave me alone as Cleveland is dominating the game.
How many games Cleveland win this series?
How many games does Cleveland win? Well, they'll win 4. How many games do they in how many games? Listen, it'll be 2-0 going back to Cleveland. Now, I think they could get. It's tough because 5 maximum is the longest this series will go in my eyes. Also, the schedule fell unluckily for Boston because you have 3 days off between games 2 and 3. So LeBron played famously, obviously, all 82 this year and the All-Star game. So didn't get a full time off at the All-Star break, right? Then he put 7 games in round 1, 7 exhausting games, and then back-to-back every day, or every other day, I should say, in round 2. So this is the freshest he will have been all year going into game 1. Then it's a quick turnaround going into game 2, but then 3 days off going into game 3. LeBron will play 44 minutes a night if they need him to, and Boston doesn't have an answer for that. And Al Horford's 1-16 in his career against LeBron in the playoffs. Yeah, but
again, you love historical context, and I don't, and it bit me in the ass when I said Toronto didn't have the same mental issues they did after Game 1. I own that one. But Al Horford, and we talked about this during the break, but Al Horford, in all his years, has not had an Aaron Baines playing alongside him. Al Horford in Atlanta, he had Paul Millsap, so he had to be the physical guy, and he's not the physical guy. Last year in Boston, he had Amir Johnson. Al Horford still had to be a more physical guy. Now he's out there, and he has Aaron Baines.
Aaron Baines not going to be able to play, man.
Again, if Tristan Thompson plays...
But Tristan Thompson's not going to start. They're going to start with Kevin Love.
No, they'll play Aaron Baines out there. Look, Aaron Baines first of all, he's an excellent perimeter defender for a big man. He's an excellent perimeter defender. They will play Aaron Baines in this series.
Okay, listen, if you're relying on a big Aaron Baines contribution, then I rest my case.
No, to offset the physical stuff.
The Horford stuff, I get it, and it's odd. I saw Horford go dominate Joel Embiid. He ate Joel Embiid's lunch on both ends of the court. In this last round, I believe Embiid to be the second best big man, healthy big man in the game behind Anthony Davis. Tristan Thompson's historically been a really tough matchup for him. Kevin Love's been a tough matchup for him. I guess he wasn't even on the team when your guy Kelly Olynyk ripped out his shoulder when the Celtics a few years ago. So it's odd. The matchups are weird.
How did Kelly Olynyk become my guy? I'm not.
What I just figure. I mean, he's a Boston guy. I figure a few
white guy
years
from Boston.
Yeah, I just figure a few years ago you were like. Everything you said about Aaron Baines, you're like, hasn't faced a guy like Kelly Olynyk. Yeah. Let me tell you about him.
It's just a new bar stool at JJ Foley's. They're just like, hey, exactly Kelly, right. Come on down.
So I think Boston. I thought Boston would lose to Philly. I was wrong on that.
I thought they'd lose to Philly.
I thought Philly just had too much talent that even if they were too young, and Philly at that point in time was the hottest team in the NBA. They'd not only won 20 of 21, they had the league's second best record since Christmas Day. Think about how long ago that was. Philly it's weird to say, Philly could have won that series 4-1, and they lost it 4-1. There were 3 not even 50-50 games. There were 3 games that were 75-25 Philly, and Brad Stevens and the Celtics out-executed and won them all. I don't think that will be the case in this round, and you know this stat probably better than me. I'm going to butcher it. It's like 14 times this year the Celtics been down at least 15 points and won the game.
Yeah,
something like that. They have had this belief, if it's close late, we got it. Well, nobody has that belief more than LeBron and the Cavs. Like that is the other crazy thing that's happened this postseason is who hit the 3. OG Anunoby, pardon me, hits the 3 to tie the game in Toronto. And it's like a Tom Brady situation. You look, you're like, oh, you left LeBron way too much time. Like, that's the level that he's playing at. They got no answer.
You think coaching matters in this series? Because look, Nate McMillan, good coach. I don't consider Nate a great tactician in the NBA. Dwayne Casey, I don't consider him a great tactician. Brad Stevens has a track record, great tactician. So LeBron's going to see different looks. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know if they treat LeBron in the same way they treated Giannis and Joel Embiid and say we're going to let him get what he gets and stop the three-point shooters, but they're going to have different looks. They're going to have waves of players to throw at him.
I think coaching matters. I think Ty Lue's an underrated coach.
Yes.
I think Ty Lue should get credit for sticking with Kevin Love at the 5. I think Ty Lue should get credit for dusting the mothballs off Tristan Thompson, and I think probably saving Tristan Thompson's relationship with Ms. Kardashian because given what he's done, she's certainly not staying with him if he's not still famous and in the league. So I think there's a lot of things he deserves credit for that people don't necessarily recognize. They don't want to give credit for because LeBron's there, but he's not as good of a coach as Brad Stevens. I would agree with you. I also think Stevens has a template about how do we take the others, the non-LeBron players, out. Look at what Indiana did. Do some of that. Look at what Toronto did. Do none of that.
Yeah.
So I do think this is going to be, I believe, a series that Cleveland wins in 4 or 5 that you feel like, man, Boston could have been up 3-2 after. You know what I mean? That I do think it'll be close games. I was being a little tongue-in-cheek earlier when I was saying game 1. I think it'll be a blowout. I think Cleveland will win. But I think it's close games. And Boston's got bodies to throw at LeBron. Marcus Morris, take him for 10 minutes. Your guy, is it Yabusele?
Gershon, Semi Ojeleye.
No, Semi Ojeleye is the guy I'm thinking of. They're both built similarly, but Semi looks like an NFL tight end.
Yeah,
you lean on him for 10 minutes. Marcus Smart, who I consider like a rich man's Lance Stevenson. You go breathe your, I imagine, bad breath on him and lean on him and do those types of things. Like that will. LeBron still gets his, but against Toronto, it looked like he was practicing, and against Indiana, it looked like he had to work for everything. I think Boston will be closer to that.
One of the reasons that Boston does well against a team like Golden State and Houston, last couple of years, they played excellent against Golden State.
And I want to talk about that series.
Yeah, they played great against those two teams is because when you try to create mismatches against Boston, it doesn't work because they'll switch everything and they've got good defenders at key positions. if you just try to blow through them, it can work because, a guy like LeBron, they don't have an individual answer for. A guy like Embiid, well, Baines played pretty well against him. They had an answer. Giannis had great moments in this series. LeBron is capable in this series, if he wants to go for 40 plus every single night. But is that a winning formula in a series like this? Because, Nick, I think if LeBron wants to average 40, Boston's going to let him. If they can keep J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver,